Okay, so let's get right into it. We're going to break down one of the most, well, psychologically challenging and frankly fascinating ideas in modern recovery. Step 2 of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, I want to be clear, this is not about endorsing anything. This is about taking a deep dive into the mechanics of belief and how an organization tackles this huge, monumental task of getting skeptics, atheists, and the totally disillusioned to even consider a power greater than themselves as a practical tool for change.
So there it is. That's the whole thing. And for someone who is just in step 1 admitted they are completely powerless over alcohol, these words can feel like hitting a brick wall. Came to believe. I mean, that's a huge ask right there. A power greater than ourselves, even bigger. And then restore us to sanity, that implies a level of insanity that is just deeply uncomfortable for anyone to face. It's a statement that, right off the bat, creates a serious conflict.
And this quote from the source material just captures that conflict perfectly. This is the voice of the newcomer. They've just been convinced they have a fatal problem they can't solve themselves. They're in a state of absolute helplessness. And right at that moment, they're told the only solution is something they may not or simply cannot believe in. It's this desperate cry for a practical way forward.
So in this explainer, that's the exact path we're going to walk. We'll kick things off with the dilemma itself, then we'll look at the very common roadblocks to belief that the program actually expects people to have. After that, we'll see how it offers a way through with the power of openness, which leads to a faith that works. And finally, we'll see how this whole thing comes together in redefining sanity.
Okay, first up, the dilemma. After the brutal, ego-crushing honesty of step 1, the program immediately asks for what feels like a giant leap of faith. And for so many people, this feels like switching from a very real, practical problem to some impossible spiritual demand.
Now, this is where the psychology gets really brilliant, because the program actually anticipates this resistance. It doesn't try to ignore it or argue with it. It meets it head-on by identifying what it calls a parade of doubters, each one with their own very relatable reason for being skeptical.
First in the parade is the belligerent skeptic. This is the person who truly believes that humanity, through pure reason, is the highest power there is. The whole idea of a higher power isn't just wrong to them, it's an insult to their entire worldview. It threatens the idea that man is the only God his universe knows.
And this quote, man, it just nails the stakes for this person. This is not some casual intellectual debate. It is an existential crisis. To accept step 2 feels like he has to renounce his core identity. He's not just being asked to believe something new. He's being asked to literally abandon the foundation of his life just to save it.
Next up, we've got the intellectual. This is the person who worships at the altar of science and knowledge. They're just absolutely convinced their brain power alone should be enough to conquer any problem, even something as deep-seated as addiction. To them, intellect can and should conquer nature.
I mean, what a vivid image, right? Prideful balloons. It points to this hidden arrogance that becomes a massive, massive barrier. It's this intellectual self-sufficiency that makes it impossible for them to admit they need help from any power, let alone some higher one. Their pride is literally their undoing.
Then you've got the person who is just completely disgusted with organized religion. You know this type. They focus on the hypocrisy, the self-righteousness they see in believers, and they use that as proof that the entire enterprise is just bankrupt.
And this just brilliantly pulls back the curtain on the psychological defense that's going on here. By constantly pointing out the flaws in other people, they get to feel superior, and this is the crucial part. They get to avoid the painful work of looking at themselves. Their contempt for others is just a shield protecting their own ego.
Finally, there's the defiant one. Now, this person isn't an atheist. They are angry at God. They prayed for things, they made demands, and they felt totally abandoned when those demands weren't met. They see their alcoholism as the final, cruelest joke of all.
This quote is just so raw. You can feel the profound sense of betrayal. For them, faith was a transaction that failed, a promise that got broken. And trying to believe again? That feels like willingly stepping right back into a toxic relationship.
Okay, so how in the world does the program get past all these roadblocks? This is the real turning point. It doesn't try to argue anyone into belief. Instead, it offers these practical, psychological ways to just be open to the idea.
So the key is this 3-part reassurance. First, and this is huge, it's not a demand, it's just a suggestion. That immediately takes the pressure off. Second, you don't have to swallow the whole thing at once. You can take it in little pieces. That makes it manageable. And third, the only real requirement is an open mind. Just stop fighting for a minute and listen. It transforms this giant, impossible leap of faith into one tiny little step.
This really is the final question, isn't it? What about the person who's thinking, okay, an open mind is great, but my mind is closed and locked? You know, the person who has absolutely zero spiritual inclination whatsoever. What about them?
And this is probably the program's most pragmatic, most genius move. It offers a substitution. It says, you don't have to believe in God, you can make the group itself your higher power. Why? Well, because this group of people has solved a problem that you haven't. So logically, they represent a power greater than yourself. This lets a person put their faith in tangible, observable results, not in theology. It's a game changer.
So, with that door to openness now cracked just a little bit, the focus shifts to results. The goal becomes building a faith that actually works in your life.
And here, the source makes this incredibly important distinction. A working faith is about reliance, not defiance. See, defiance is telling the universe what you demand, it's running from problems, it's living in pride. Reliance, on the other hand, is asking for guidance, calmly accepting the things you can't change, and embracing humility. It's a total shift from fighting reality to actually working with it. But then there's this fascinating paradox. What about the person who is deeply religious, who prays all the time, but is still trapped in alcoholism? This shows us that just having any old faith isn't the answer.
Yeah, the problem here isn't the quantity of faith, it's the quality. The source suggests that these folks are often self-deceived. Their so-called humility is really just a mask for pride. Their religious practice is shallow, and their prayers, they're just a laundry list of demands. Grant me my wishes. They haven't actually done the deep internal work to allow for real change to happen.
And all of this, it all brings us to the step's ultimate goal. And it's not religious conversion. It's a very practical, psychological outcome, redefining what sanity even means. The text offers this simple, almost clinical definition, soundness of mind. And then it poses a devastatingly simple question. Can any alcoholic, when they're soberly looking back at their own destructive behavior, whether it's destroying furniture or their own character, can they honestly claim that they possess soundness of mind? The answer is almost always no.
So, in the end, this is the whole point. Step 2 isn't some kind of religious test, it's a rallying point. It's the unifying idea that to escape the insanity of any self-destructive pattern, we have to find some power that's greater than our own broken willpower. The nature of that power, that's left up to each of us to define. But the need for it, that becomes the common ground where real change can finally begin.